Hello, everyone. This is Anand from the Great State Mural. Before we start this episode, we have a quick message to our listeners. This will be our last episode. Don't worry, last episode for season 1. And we'll be back in season 2. So what does this mean? Well, this means that we will not be uploading new episodes on our regular bi-weekly schedule, but it will take around a short break around 4 to 3 weeks, and then we will resume our regularly scheduled programming. And hopefully renew our podcast and do all sorts of things that will make the podcast even better, hopefully. And again, thank you everyone for listening and supporting our podcast. This has been a great journey, and hopefully we'll bring you more great episodes about Mongolia and give you more analysis about Mongolian politics and society at large. Well, here's the episode. Hello everyone, this is Anand from the Great State Mural, Mongolia Portrayed, our bi-weekly podcast that analyzes the current developments and deeper structures and the joys of contemporary Mongolia.
And this is Julian coming to you from Germany, which has just tragically crashed out of the World Cup. Tough day.
Today we have a very special guest, Dorjpagma, also known as Dono from Modern Mongolia. We have Donna today as a guest to talk about her podcast / Instagram page, I would say. She can explain it herself better, I think. And the Mongolian Naadam Festival, which this episode will subsequently basically be a few days earlier. It'll be out a few days earlier before the Naadam Festival. So, can you introduce yourself to our audience, Donna, and tell us briefly about what is Modern Mongolia?
Hi, thank you for inviting me to your podcast. Sure, definitely I can introduce Modern Mongolia. My name is Dorjpagma, and I'm a researcher living in Budapest, and currently I'm in International Studies PhD program at ELTE University, and I run a page called Modern Mongolia. I started Modern Mongolia as a podcast, but a year ago I mostly started posting content, so now it's a page.
What I loved about Anand's introduction, yours is good too, Dono, but Anand's introduction was, here's Dono from Modern Mongolia, as opposed to Anand from ancient Mongolia. So I'm glad we've settled what time periods we're referring to here. Dono, what international studies PhD, obviously this is all very dear to my heart, but what led you to want to start the podcast? And tell us a little bit about how you have seen the focus of topics and how that's shifted now that you're mostly posting rather than podcasting.
Sure. So I started Modern Mongolia first as a podcast in 2021 during the COVID lockdown. So 3 years prior to that, in 2018, I came to Hungary for cultural anthropology master's, and that was my first time living abroad. And when I started when I started meeting new people and introduced myself that I'm from Mongolia, many of them were very interested to hear more about Mongolia, and they immediately say like, oh yes, Mongolia, Chinggis Khan. And then they started asking questions like, so do you ride horse to your school? Or like, do you have a TV? And like questions like that, So I just realized overall, people are very much interested to know more about Mongolia, but there is just basically not enough English coverage about Mongolia, allowing people to get to know what it's actually like in Mongolia, unless you really go and visit physically Mongolia. So I had the idea to start the podcast. I started, and when I finished my master's, I went back to Mongolia, and it was the time of pandemic. The quarantine started. Then I finally had the time to start the podcast. I started interviewing first expats. I started asking them about sharing their experience. How was their first imagination of Mongolia before arriving to Mongolia, and how the reality differed. So that's how it started. And I was also sharing my own personal reflection of being in Mongolia, going back to Mongolia, and I've also felt this kind of like culture shock, differences, and also the program I studied, anthropology and culture, it also affected me to see Mongolia and my culture from very new perspective. I started reading more, and I realized there's so much to share about Mongolia, not just Genghis Khan. So that's basically how it started and how it's going right now.
I'm always in favor of the not just Genghis Khan attitude, and so I'm totally on board with that one. Anand, it's kind of interesting to listen to Dono, right? We've been going with our podcast for a year now. And what Dono has described is much more of an educational mission than what we have, right? Because I think we assume that our listeners are pretty knowledgeable about Mongolia already. And because we get quite specific, and also we're much more... where you don't know you come at this from a sort of a cultural and anthropological perspective. Ours is much more focused on sort of contemporary politics and social development. And it's, I don't know if we're missing out on an audience by not being more educational and by not doing more of what Dono's described, is that people have questions. Well, I'm afraid that people who have questions about Mongolia probably don't turn to us for answers. What do you think, Anand?
I agree. I think some of our audience or some supporters would probably fare better looking at Modern Mongolia, Dono's page, more than listening to us. But we still don't want to lose listeners. I feel like our content is to mainly like fill gaps in people who know about Mongolia, and maybe there's like a specific thing they would like to really know, and then they just don't really find a way can get that information, or there is an information but it's just all a jumble, and maybe we can contextualize that and make it more digestible. I think for us it is a little bit what Donna does, but in a more in a very more niche perspective. I would say that we are not trying to tell like a person who don't know about Mongolia what Mongolia is, basically, if that makes sense. Yeah, Donna. So, was there a moment in doing Modern Mongolia that you realized that this is important, that the viewers were listening, the listeners were listening, and they wanted more? And what was that moment like for you? Like maybe like a comment or say like, oh, I didn't know about this, and then I really appreciate you telling me about this, and I'm grateful. And you thought like, okay, what I'm doing is important.
So. Yeah, first of all, of course, there is no competition at all, and we should discuss about Mongolia as much as we can. And especially, I really appreciate and I support what you're doing, your podcast, because now I'm not doing podcast anymore because you know how much hassle it is actually. Like you need to approaching people, scheduling, scripting and editing, post-production. It takes a lot of time. And for me, I was doing everything alone. So that's why I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep up with everything. And I also started enjoying more
That's why you should get co-hosts.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And nowadays, I'm also reading more and researching more, and then it's much more easy to just make that information as a contest, package it as a content. So I enjoy it more, and I'm doing that more. Especially when I was making the podcast and talking with people were reaching out to me a lot that thank you for making the podcast, because I really didn't know about this Mongolia. And the more I interviewed new people, the more I tried to show up, I was realizing that it's important, no matter the views and people see it, because at the time people really didn't talk about this kind of daily context or realities of Mongolia. And also after a few years after that, Mongolian government starting the tourism industry, and they're working hard on attracting more and more tourists. And so, after math, there's a huge rise of travel content on YouTube. People are coming to Mongolia, traveling and making vlogs, showing the landscape. They're doing all sorts of content-wise, this a lot of coverage about Mongolia. And then still, it's mostly just focused on the nomadic life, herders, and just still showing only the vast steppe, the romanticism of Mongolia, and so on. So I also keep feeling that it's important to talk about the current politics and also the urban life and the urban-rural divide. So there's a whole lot to discuss still.
Who would you say did a better job of promoting Mongolia? Was it the travel bloggers or the participants of Physical Asia?
Oh, I was only following the Physical Asia from social media. I didn't watch it myself, but I think it did a very, very good job. But especially for Asian audience, international audience. But for example, my friends from here, European friends, they were not very aware of Physical Asia. So for Asian audience, it did amazing job, and all the participants are now superstars. So I love that. And travel vloggers are also doing great, I think. But as I said, and there's also, the more people started producing this kind of content about Mongolia, there's the algorithm, what people want to see. And when you show the landscape and the beautiful visuals, people want to see that more. So it also, I think, people start to just do whatever the algorithm wants and people want to see. So I think the importance is to also, again, to keep showing the wholesomeness of Mongolia in a comprehensive way.
Showing the wholesomeness of a Mongolian comprehensive way, I think that's a great motto. We should host a conference that has that motto somehow. Do you have a sense, Dono, what you described a little bit with the podcast, the kind of audiences you reached, and it sounds a little bit like they're primarily people, and this is probably true in posting content as well, that they're primarily people who are not deeply connected to Mongolia. Whereas we imagine our audience to be pre-connected, right? To already know, I want to find this out. I'm interested in Mongolian. Is that a fair sense? And what kind of beyond the, that's very interesting, I didn't know that, reactions you got? Because a lot of the discussion you had went beyond that in the episodes, right? Yeah, you pointed out, oh, here's something sort of different about Mongolia. But as a cultural anthropologist, you come with a critical eye to those questions and try to figure out how people perceive that. So I'm curious to hear more about how that audience that is not very knowledgeable and that you attract through curiosity, perhaps, and how then you're able to deal, or how you're able to get them a bit deeper in their interest and beyond the sort of things you just described, the steppe and the nomadic, some romanticized version of nomadicism. Bit of a rambling question, but see what you think.
Right now, like from my page, when I look at the audience, who it's reaching to, like the things I'm sharing, it seems like, as you said, like people who are curious about Mongolia, maybe they're preparing to travel, they're just very enthusiastic to learn more about Mongolia. I don't know why, actually. And then there are also Mongolians who are very, us Mongolians also feel like we don't know much about our own culture. Like I also see that there's kind of a wave of young Mongolians trying to reconnect back to the roots. And there are a lot of Mongolians are living abroad. They immigrated many years ago, but they still want to be connected to Mongolia, learn Mongolia in a cultural sense, again, teach their kids. So there's like two types of audience. People who are reconnecting back to Mongolia, Mongolians, and then foreigners who are curious about Mongolia. So I think that's the audience that I'm serving right now. And I also try to be a bit critical, sometimes offer kind of a critical insights about Mongolia. For that, I don't have like specific goal or idea to like, I want to appeal this many kind of people, or I just want to share what I want to share.
Yes, speaking of cultures, again, this episode will fall right before the Naadam festivals, and at Naadam, for those who don't know, it is one of the biggest festivals for Mongolians, for Mongols, also known as the Eriin Gurvan Naadam, or loosely translated, the three manly games, where participants show their strength in wrestling, horse racing, and archery. The folklore behind that is basically to see who is best at wrestling. But I would like to ask that there was a quintessential disagreement recently that the Naadam festival should have that folklore element, basically. Some people say it's historic, but I think a lot of researchers say it's not actually rooted in history, where one person competed in all three games. And do you think we should have that kind of celebratory thing with Naadam, or do you think that's not a good expenditure of our time? And also, why haven't you done anything about Naadam, basically? That was a little rambling question also.
Yeah, if you just type Mongolia on the internet, one of the first thing it shows is about Naadam. So I don't know, I was just not too, like, I didn't think, I really want to share about Naadam. But of course, it's like there's nothing wrong with like talking about Naadam. I don't know, I think also because of the timing, it's summer. I think I was just having holiday. I think that's basically my answer. I didn't really think particularly about like Naadam. For us, for me and my family, it's Naadam is more than like a holiday rather than celebration. So I took it as a holiday. So just rest and watch TV and just spend some time in the nature.
So you never went to see any of the horse races or the wrestling matches when you were young, or?
When I was young, we did, of course, as a family with my parents and with my sister. We went to the Naadam Naadam opening, I think, a couple times. But recent years, like later years, many times I was not in Mongolia, and I would see. I like the opening ceremony. I love it. I love the music. I love march, the horse marches. I love it. But I was just seeing. I was not in Mongolia either, or we were just already in the countryside, and we would just visit the local ones in Somnatham. So yeah, that's how it's going last years.
Interesting that you say that it was more of a holiday, because I think a lot of Mongolians do see it as more of a holiday than they actually see it as a celebration. I think it's for me it's a mix of both, I guess. But why do you think there is like a gap between like not really appreciating Naadam for what it is? Like that, for me, it's also basically the same thing. I don't really go out and see the horse races. When I was young, I remember specifically going to the horse races, and it was one of the worst times I ever had because I was like sitting in like a scorching sun, just waiting for these horses to come to the finish line. You don't know what's going on. You're just waiting and waiting, and when they finally do come into the finish line, it's just like all this dust bellowing, and you just see just these small kids riding this almost like inebriated horses. I'm sorry, inebriated horses just getting into the finish line, and it was not something that I was very fond of. And then when we were about to leave, all of these people gathered around the winning horse, and they were trying to like scrape the sweat of the winning horse, and they almost trampled me basically. Like I was in their path, and I tripped, and they were almost trampled on me. But luckily, my grandfather went in front of them and shooed them away. Yeah, that was my experience. So, look, again, a rambling question. Sorry. Why do you think there is like a divide of people not looking at a celebration, and looking at the festivities as a celebration, and seeing it more as of a holiday?
I think it's just because if my family, we are not, for example, my grandparents live in the Arhanga Amek, and even though they have like herds and horses, they are not really like preparing their horse for racing, or like they're not physically participating to Naadam. We're just like an audience, but of course, for us, we visit our relatives and our grandparents in the countryside. We gather together, we make horse show, we watch wrestling, and maybe some of the young boys, they go see the horse racing. So that's basically how Naadam goes for us. So it's just because of my family, it's more of like a holiday. But some people are like very serious about Naadam because they're raising their own horse. They're preparing for months, and
they get dressed up.
Exactly, yes. And also one thing I wanted to say is about, unlike Thansar, it's we don't get to do like, especially for women, we don't get to do like a whole month long cleaning or like preparation, things like that. So it's basically holiday. That's how it feels for me. Yes, it's more of a holiday.
So what I'm not, so I'm hearing holiday. I'm hearing sports a little bit, but what I'm not hearing is heritage celebration, and it both at the local level, the local Naadam, or even the company Naadam or the Aimak Naadam, but the national one. There's a lot of pretty heavy symbolic nationalism involved, right? It's not a neutral sporting event. But is that aspect not meaningful, or to both of you? You just kind of ignore it and say it's just part of pomp and circumstance, it's part of the show. And I don't mean, it being heavily nationalist, that's not a negative thing. It's not an aggressive nationalism. It doesn't try to conquer anyone at that point. But it is very much branded, celebrated as a Mongolian event. And so what about that aspect?
You're right. It's very much a heritage event. It defines what Mongolia is. It's part of Mongolian cultural identity. It's also very symbolic. So I think it's just the timing that when the government allows like a week-long holiday, it just stretches to, like with the weekends, it stretches to 10 days. So yes, Naadam is important. We love it. We would like to celebrate, see the opening ceremony, but we have this free time, so it's just part of the lifestyle that we get to travel. We can just retreat. We can just go on the road. So it's basically a lot of the Mongolians are doing, I think. But if you are staying in the city in Newbie, or you definitely even as a symbolically, you should just like check out what's going on, visit the stadium at least once. And
I think for me, I see it as more of like a specific, like an insider event almost. And that when I was a kid, when I was seeing the horse races, I didn't know what was going on. Well, I don't know why there were like 5, 4, 6 different horse races. And I don't think it was taught to us in school about the age of the horses was important. The distance of the length of the races, that's never really specified at anything at any part at all. You just have to know basically. And I think it stems from our oral tradition of not really like documenting things, just saying things and just observing and just knowing knowing that this is happening. I think that might be a detriment to our culture, in that for me, and maybe for Dono, maybe not, but like at least for me, that was basically the divide that I had with Naadam, is that I didn't know a lot of the rules of the horse races. I didn't know a lot of the rules of the wrestling and how the wrestlers got their titles and all that. And it's not very specific. Also, I think you can look it up, but it's not there. It's not given as an easy or like a digestible information to be found. And like even for regular Mongolians, people think that you just have to know. And I think that's probably the detriment of a lot of Mongolians not really appreciating the festivities. For me at least.
The sporting parts are not hard to understand, Anand, right? So what do you mean? I mean, with the horse racing, if you're at the race, whoever comes in first wins. It's pretty straightforward.
Yes, I understand that, but there's like 6 different horse races, and then so this horse wins, and then why isn't that horse racing in the championship of the horse races? You're not understanding that aspect of it, and then you realize, it's depending on the age of the horse, not on who wins this race. Unlike again, like as we discussed with soccer, where you just know this team scored this goal, and all that. Yeah.
But can you explain the offsides rule, Anand?
What?
Can you explain the offsides rule? That's the dividing question on soccer.
Maybe at a later time. But do you agree with the notion that maybe it's like an insider thing for a lot of festivities, or am I just wrong, Donna?
I agree with you, Anand, because I also don't know the details. I think it's Naadam is more of like a state level celebration, but like local and family level, it's more of like a holiday. And for example, this summer, my family is having the Eriin Bayer celebration during Naadam, so it's also allowing people to meet with each other and have this big gathering of the whole family and relatives in the countryside. So I also didn't know anything about the horse racing and nor the wrestling. I barely know some wrestlers, and I also know who is wrestling from our province, Arhanga, and beyond that, I am not really following wrestling, anything. So yeah, it's very important, of course, in a state level. It's a national brand. It's also like a state ritual, I think. And for in a daily basis, local level, it's a holiday.
Just a heads up to our listeners, please consider subscribing to the podcast to stay up to date on new episodes. Please rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening on. It makes the podcast easier to find for others. We would like to improve the production and the quality of the podcast, so please support us at buymecoffee.com/GreatStateMural to contribute to that aspiration. Apart from your podcast app, you can find more information about us, how to support, how to comment, and more information on other episodes at agulumedia.com/podcast. Now back to the show.
That's very interesting. So if we take the other big calendar event in the Mongolian festivity calendar, right? If we take Tsagansa, it's almost exclusively a private event or a social family, right? But it happens in homes. There's very little of a public display, whereas what you've just described, certainly for the both of you, certainly for the national Naadam, it's very much a public event and maybe not a private event at all, except for, as you just said, Anand, for insiders who are invited. If you're a horse breeder or if you're in the wrestling world as a trainer or if your cousin is or whatever it is, right? And so it's primarily a public event, but then, as you've also just talked about, Dono, when you go to the local level, if it's your Sum Naadam or so, then it becomes more of a private event again, because it's also friends, families gathering, relatives gathering. And so then the sporting part, right, the three competitions are the occasion and the excuse to gather, but not necessarily the focus of activities, except for the insiders. Is that sort of the continuum you see from the national to the local?
Yes, exactly. I agree with what you just described. Yes, unless you're an insider or unless your horse is racing or your brother is wrestling, it's more of public. And again, at some level, it's the same.
What about politics? We've had some scandals over the years of military honors going to wrestling champions and the like. And politicians certainly do like to present themselves on the stage at the national Naadam, right? Is there and this is, just because we've got the World Cup going on, every president always goes to sit on the VIP, in the VIP section at the World Cup. But is there something particular about how politics interacts with the national Naadam that either of you see?
For me, muddies the waters of again tradition and maybe honors and who is the strongest, and there's lots of past cases of match fixing for wrestlers because some provincial leaders would like to see their wrestler have their ranking go up, basically, and in a way that if they do achieve a higher ranking, it also looks good on the politician who comes from that province. It's kind of ludicrous, but I guess it's just people are people. We have dumb superstitions that still persist, and it sadly affects how our leaders also act. And one of the tragedies I see with politics entering the the Naadam festivities, any of our traditional sports, is that it really affects people's lives in the worst. Like like the jockeys, the child jockeys, where we have like I think we used to only have horse racing in the summer, but I guess greed have it that you just have to have horsing every year round, and children would race in cold winters, and then they would get maimed in all sorts of ways, which is bad. And thankfully we had a very good pro bono lawyer who she's now part of Parliament now, and recently a lot of people protested and said that we need to bring back the winter horse racing. It is our tradition, and it's not the children jockeys who are advocating to bring back the winter horse race. It's mainly the rich and the powerful, and that's the one aspect I'm really averse to sports. A lot of sports, yeah. I think I don't know. Maybe I'm going on a ramble here. I think that a lot of the times sports loses its favor when it's just too much politics is involved, and the politicians just want to put a rubber stamp themselves and to show themselves as good people, and it doesn't really go that way. And I think Mongolia is like a very good, clear example of how sports should not be involved with politics. Even though sports, it is political, but like politics having a hangover.
Yeah, as you mentioned, every year, every Naadam, there's a discussion of the child jockeys and human rights discussion versus this is our tradition, heritage. We should, what about like keeping and preserving our tradition? And then the other side, we should protect, like we should not let young children ride horses, etc. So, of course, that's definitely an issue we need to like address and discuss. And also, I remember the picture that was being shared, I think last year, that like that picture kind of brought up the class, social class discussion online. The rider kid was from like a poor family, and then the trophy was held by the like rich family's kid with the clothes of Mongolian Khan or something like that. And yes,
or like nobility. Yes.
So it also brings up this kind of discussion. About the sports and politics, to be honest, I really don't have much to add. But of course, because I think for politicians, it provides platform and opportunity to go back to their voters and present them as like, I'm doing this good job, I did this and that, and kind of report back to the community. But more than that, it's just like, I don't know. I think with the wrestling, for wrestlers, it's a huge event that they have opportunity to improve their ranking. So I think there's a lot of lobbying and political corruption also goes on beyond that. So it never goes separately. It's always hand in hand. So,
You probably got a lot of comments of saying like why are you trying to shed light on the bad parts? Why can't you just focus on the good parts of Mongolian culture? What bothers you when you discuss culture? Does those not talking about the bad part, is that a good approach, or just blasting everything out, saying like this is wrong? Do you think is that the right approach? What basically bothers you when you're like discussing culture, specifically Mongolian culture?
I try to not to just praise one side of Mongolian life and then just not completely not mention the other side. So I just try to be balanced and, for example, like just discuss what is Gir district. So many people don't know what Gir district is, but for your audience, they already know, and they know about the life, Mongolian life. So I just try to show the whole picture of Mongolia. And yeah, some people say that it's too pessimistic or like quite always not very positive look on Mongolia, but it is what it is. And when you travel to Mongolia, it is there. So I don't want to be like sugarcoating anything. Represent Mongolia as it is. Of course, there's many nice things that I'm proud of, the cultural things, wisdom. We have rich history too. And also there's other things. Every culture has this double side, dual side.
I'm ever the rosy glass guy on democracy, at least, right? I'm always going to say it's much better than many people think. And it's working well. I have a confession to make to both of you and to our audience. I've never been to Naadam. I've avoided being in Mongolia during that time because our flights are tough and because then the travel afterwards is difficult. And so in all these years of visiting a lot, I've never been. I've been to some local Naadams and some company Naadams, but never the national one. I do feel like I should go sometimes just to see all the pomp and circumstance. But instead, I've made do with talking about it with knowledgeable colleagues like you two, rather than actually visiting the event. And so I find this juxtaposition. There's a lot of things going on, right? This private-public distinction that we talked a little bit about. The distinctly heritage Mongolian brandedness, right? That it's not a generic sporting event. It's not archery and horse racing and wrestling exist in other parts of the world, but the version that happens at Naadam is particularly Mongolian. It's to add to the politics discussion briefly is it's a time of the year when there are no politics. Parliament is no longer in session. Everyone is sort of on break. And then
usually the worst legislation is passed right before now.
Just before the break comes.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, because people are not noticed. People are preparing to take their break. Yes.
And one of the things I take away more strongly, because it's something that's less relevant to my own calendar, but both of you emphasized the extent to which it's just simply a holiday. Right, so it's great to have some days off and to know that they come in July, and that's the moment where other things can happen, whether that's going back to Archery or traveling abroad, whatever that may be. And so there's a real meaning to simply having a spot in the calendar that you know is available for holidaying. And so it's a happily complex topic that as cultural anthropologists or as sociologists or as journalists, we can continue to sink our teeth in as we have done here. And so from my perspective, at least, happy Naadam to listeners as it'll come a little bit after we release this episode.
I have a few closing questions. How much do you see the internet has helped in preserving our culture, or how much has it hurt in building, in preservation of our culture that you see of Donna?
The internet is, of course, helping people to discover Mongolia and learn more about Mongolia. It provides a lot of insights. And in terms of preserving culture, people, as I observe, people are more keen to be proud of showing their roots or heritage. We are Mongolian. They're wearing more del and showing that they're learning the traditional scripts. So people are proud to show that they're Mongolian. and preserve their culture. But on the other side, on the national level, there is kind of like packaging the tradition as like commodity that happens when the tourism increases, I think. But it's that's also from the tourist side, foreigner side. That's what's specific and interesting, exotic about Mongolia. That's what they want to see. So that's kind of, I guess, inevitable thing that happens. So yeah, it's also can be a bit nuanced. But I think overall it's helping in a positive way that people are also seeing that we have rich cultural tradition. We need to preserve that, and especially I just see from my audience that people are really, really proud and love showing that they're Mongolian. It's kind of like an internet personality now, like to be Mongolian or like to be like Central Asian also, like these days. Yeah.
Okay. What is your Mirgan take on, specifically on Modern Mongolia? No, not your pitch, just Modern Mongolia.
Modern Mongolia is lively, full of life. It's also chaotic, and it's also very vibrant. And if you can, I would recommend visiting and seeing it yourself, and also keep educating yourself about Mongolia. Yeah, I think that's the take. It's more like advice or recommendation.
I think it's good advice, Dono. I think that works well. Vibrant, chaotic, and full of life is terrific. Listeners, thank you for checking in on us. You can follow Dono on, she's got the great handle Modern Mongolia, all one word, on Instagram. How can people know more about what we do, Anand? Do we have any suggestions?
Oh, so you can find us on most of the podcasting platforms, the Great State Mural, if you look that up. We are also, if you look up online agulamedia.com, that's where we post all of our show notes for our podcast and any of the links and researches that the guests we have had on. I think that's the best we have, and we will probably update more information going forward. And we are not as market savvy or social media savvy as Donna at the moment.
All right, everyone, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again in coming episodes. Dono, thank you so much for coming on. Terrific to talk to you. Lovely. For those of you who don't see the video, she's got a nice light chain of mushrooms behind her, and it's a nice setting you've got there. And then a poster of mushrooms. There's a mushroom thing going on. We'll have to talk about some other time. But terrific to virtually meet you and have a chance to talk about Naadam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was also very awesome to talk to you. Yeah, I'm just sitting in my kitchen. And
aren't we all sitting in our kitchens? Okay. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.